Greetings to all viewers of Freedom TV channel. Thank you for being with us. This is our time, and here are the top news stories at this hour. In the studio, Yuri Kovalyevich. Hello. The war in Gaza is over. Well, at least that's what U.S. President Donald Trump said while speaking in the Israeli parliament. The agreement provides for the disarmament of the Hamas group. Let me remind you that the head of the White House arrived in Israel for a summit of leaders from more than 20 countries. The summit is dedicated to peace in the Gaza Strip and the Middle East. Negotiations between the Hamas terrorist group and Israel began on October 6th in Sharm el-Sheikh. Israel, as well as Hamas, approved the general principles of the Trump plan, according to which hostilities must cease, hostages must be released, and humanitarian aid will begin to enter Gaza. By this time, Hamas had also released another 13 Israeli hostages. In total, 20 people were released today. Let me remind you that Israel and Hamas are in the early stages of implementing the first phase of the peace agreement regarding the war that has been ongoing since October 7, 2023. This phase provides for the release of the last 48 hostages held by the Hamas group. We will definitely discuss this topic with an expert during this hour. In particular, we will talk about the main statements and positions voiced by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, as well as the expectations associated with the process of resolving the Hamas-Israel war, literally within this hour. So stay tuned and don't switch channels. Another person was injured as a result of a Russian drone strike on the Novorossiysk district of the Chernihiv region. This was reported by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. The drone hit a store, causing a fire. All relevant emergency services are working at the scene. The Russian Federation attacked a dormitory in Kharkiv. This was reported by the city mayor, Igor Terekov. According to him, the strike was carried out by a drone. Among the residents of the dormitory are also internally displaced persons from Kupiansk. According to preliminary information, no one was injured. The building's windows and roof were also damaged. And 6 people were killed as a result of the Russian Federation's attack on the Zaporizhzhia region. 4 people were killed and 2 were injured in the Palahi district by a drone strike. 2 more people were killed in the Novopavlivka district. There, a drone attacked the passenger car. As a result, 2 people were also injured. Overall, in the past 24 hours, the Russian Federation carried out 570 strikes on 18 settlements in the region, according to the head of the Regional Military Administration, Ivan Fedorov. The Russians used artillery, aerial bombs, drones, and multiple launch rocket systems for the shelling. And overnight, Odesa region also came under Russian attack. The aggressor used kamikaze drones. There are casualties, according to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. Large fires broke out at warehouses storing textile products and sewing equipment. A car also burned down. Meanwhile, drones from the Security Service of Ukraine and Special Operations Forces struck the Feodosia marine oil terminal. At least 5 tanks were hit, sources from Freedom reported, citing the Security Service of Ukraine. As a result of the attack, a large fire broke out at the oil depot. The Feodosia substation was also hit. Transformers and the dispatcher's protective automation were damaged. A series of explosions also rocked the Simferopol substation. The Security Service of Ukraine stated that these actions are aimed at reducing the enemy's military, logistical, and economic capabilities. Technical capabilities make it possible to strike both temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine and deep into the Russian rear. This work will continue, the Security Service of Ukraine emphasized. The head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, arrived in Kyiv for a visit. She announced this on the social network X, formerly known as Twitter. In the published photo, it can be seen that Ukraine's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Andriy Sybiha, welcomed her at the Kyiv railway station. Kallas noted the courage of the Ukrainian people, which inspires the entire world.
Ukrainians inspire the world with their bravery. Their resilience demands our full support. Today I am in Kyiv to hold talks on financial and military support, the security of Ukraine's energy sector, and holding Russia accountable for war crimes. The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy met on the social network X.
Russia will have to pay for refusing to negotiate. This was stated by French President Emmanuel Macron after his conversation with Volodymyr Zelensky. According to him, while the agreement reached in Gaza gives hope for peace in the Middle East, it is also necessary to end the war in Ukraine.
Although the agreement reached in Gaza gives hope for peace in the Middle East, the war in Ukraine must also be brought to an end. If Russia continues its military stubbornness and refuses to come to the negotiating table, it will have to pay the price for it. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, on social network X.
A Russian submarine armed with caliber missiles surfaced off the coast of France. NATO reported that the alliance is ready to defend itself and sent a French Navy frigate to monitor the Russian ship. This is the Novorossiysk submarine of the Varshavyenka class, part of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. It is from submarines of this class that Russia launches cruise missiles at Ukraine. China has responded to the United States of America regarding the tariff increase. The statement came in response to Donald Trump's threat to impose an additional 100% tariff on Chinese goods starting in November. Beijing stated that the United States should stop making threats and called for further negotiations on unresolved issues and reaching a trade agreement. My colleagues will continue covering this topic.
The United States of America will impose a 100% tariff on Chinese goods on top of the existing duties. This was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump on the social network Truth Social. This happened after China introduced new port fees for American ships and announced large-scale restrictions on the export of rare earth elements and other critical materials. In addition, they have launched an antitrust investigation against QCOM Incorporated. Chinese regulators are examining whether the American chip manufacturer violated competition rules in the country. Donald Trump sharply condemned Beijing's intention to impose export restrictions on almost all products manufactured in China. He called China's actions, and I quote, a moral disgrace.
China has taken an extremely aggressive stance on trade issues, sending a highly hostile letter to the entire world, in which it declared that starting November 1, 2020, it will implement large-scale export controls on almost all goods it produces. This applies to all countries without exception and is clearly a plan that was developed several years ago. It's hard to believe that China could take such measures, but it did. Donald Trump, President of the United States, on the social network Truth Social.
China controls about 90% of the world's mining and processing of rare earth metals, which is critically important for a wide range of products, from electric vehicles and aircraft engines to military radars. This is not the first time China has implemented export controls. Before this, the country tightened regulations after tariffs on Chinese goods were raised in January 2025.
All of this is a direct result of the ongoing trade war and technological competition that exists or is intensifying between the United States and China.
In China, they responded to Donald Trump's latest measures against Beijing and stated that the U.S. should stop threatening with tariffs. They called for further negotiations on unresolved issues in order to reach a trade agreement.
The threat of high tariffs at every turn is not the right way to get along with China. China urges the U.S. to correct its wrongful practices as soon as possible. This is according to a statement from China's Ministry of Commerce posted on the agency's website.
Additionally, U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening China with restrictions on the export of Boeing spare parts. He stated that the U.S. could impose export controls on the supply of parts and components for airplanes if Beijing extends restrictions on the export of rare earth metals, which are critically important for American industry.
China has a monopoly on the production of most of these rare earth metals, and there are more than a dozen of them. And China can significantly influence the technological landscape. Production in those countries that specialize in modern electronics, which use these rare earth metals to create microchips, and also some other components for electronics. And this control allows China to use rare earth metals and their trade as a lever of pressure, or you could say, as a means of protection against the United States.
The escalation of the trade standoff between the United States and China on Friday triggered a sharp reaction in the financial markets. Oil and cryptocurrencies plummeted in value, and the shares of the world's largest companies fell by more than 2% after the markets closed. Recall that in April 2025, Donald Trump imposed high tariffs on Chinese goods, raising them to 54%. China responded with countermeasures, increasing its own tariffs. In the following weeks, Washington and Beijing took turns raising tariffs, reaching 145% for Chinese goods in the U.S. and 120% for American goods in China. In May, a 90-day trade truce was announced. The parties agreed on mutual tariff terms, and Trump announced that the document had been signed. On September 15th, Trump announced a major trade meeting in Europe between the United States of America and China. However, on October 10th, Donald Trump claimed that China had taken a supposedly hostile action and cancelled the meeting.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.